Welcome back to another episode of Your Wichita Falls. And I am your host, Debbie Dobbins. I live in Wichita Falls, Texas, and I want to share with you from a Texan's perspective. I'm a born and raised Southern California girl about what I see going on in my state that's making national news. So stay tuned. We're getting started right now. So first, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could, literally. And if you've ever lived in California, which I have, born and raised, I literally spent the majority of my life in California. But if you've ever lived in California, or you pay attention to California at all, you understand why I had the gas pedal all the way down to get here. Because honest to God, I had to get out of crazy land. I mean, people have been making fun of California for years about the land of fruits and nuts. I kind of have to agree with that a little bit right now. And as a transplant from California, which I don't know that I'm a transplant, I just was fleeing from there. Also, I'm a California girl, so I still say avocado toast without shame. And I know the exact number of Trader Joe's within a 10-mile radius of my old house. But I also know exactly what a broken democracy smells like. And spoiler alert, it ain't barbecue. Like, that's what we got going on here in Texas. California has been my home, or was my home, for decades. But literally, California became a master class in what not to do if you want your vote to matter. And I watched it corrode, destroy, lose its mind over a period of time. And it was like a frog being boiled slowly, but the handwriting was always on the wall. So when I hear people clutching their pearls about democracy being subverted in Texas right now, I have to laugh a little bit because honestly, the precedent has been set by states like California. And I'm telling you, I know it doesn't feel good when your voice is not heard. I get that completely. But I also have to laugh because I've seen it in real time. I've seen the real deal. And trust me, we're not there in Texas. As a matter of fact, all these people that have fled from California to Texas wanted to get away from that. And so now they've come here and we've set up shop. And this whole notion that people want to turn it into another California, it makes me a little nutty. Today, I want to talk about what I've learned from living in a one-party state to being in a border state, to watching how redistricting actually works, to seeing how the census counts people who don't even vote. We're going to cover all of those topics. And so, believe me, I've said on many videos, I love to trigger people. So hopefully I'm going to trigger some of you. And some of you are just going to go, yes, right, preaching to the choir. But here's the thing, put your comments in there because honest to goodness, this is about having a dialogue. It's about having a conversation. And I'm going to tell you what I've learned, and I've done some research that I think is really important. So stay tuned because we're going to get to the end of this and I'm going to share with you an opportunity, how to get to Wichita Falls, because my God, California people, get here as fast as you can. We're going to get into some facts, some history, and probably some sass because, I like to be sass and spicy. So buckle up. Buckle up, sisters and brothers. I'm telling you, escaping from California, it was one of the best decisions. I've done it twice. I had to go back and find out again how, not cool it is there. But here's a statistic that will make your coffee go gold or your toenails curl up. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article that less than 20% of Americans live in a state where the minority party has a meaningful voice in governance. That's terrible. This is a representative government that we live in. And I've studied since I was a young child. We used to teach in school how the Constitution works, how laws are made, all of that good, happy stuff. None of that's going on right now. But the fact of the matter is our forefathers actually had a plan. It's called representative government. And that means that the people are represented by an individual that then goes to the federal government, the Congress, and represents us. But the problem becomes is this whole thing of gerrymandering. Some of you may not even have heard of the word gerrymandering until recently. I've grown up with it because I grew up in a political house. But the fact of the matter is that California saw that statistic that I just quoted from the Wall Street Journal and said, challenge accepted. And then they went for the gold medal in one party rule. I literally have watched that from a front row seat in California. And really, as I said, I grew up in a political family, but my mom worked for a state assemblyman slash senator. He was assemblyman and then a senator in the California legislature. And I am telling you, politics makes me crazy to begin with because it is so corrupt on all levels. I mean, from the city to the state to the federal, but regardless, over time, California became a place where only one political voice mattered. One. That's the Democratic voice. That's the problem with all of these states. And I'm going to share with you some stats that you're not getting on the television or the press or these wherever these people are showing up in the world. When you only listen to one version with spin, then you adopt that and you keep going forward. But I've done some research, so I want to begin to talk about that in a second. But the California, they gerrymandered the state to the nth degree, 100%. Now, I think it's very interesting that honestly, I just saw, of course, all the Democrats in Texas have fled to these other states, these totally gerrymandered states, California being one of them. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, which is another reason I had to get the hell out of Dodge, has now stood in front of the press as of yesterday, I think, and said, you know, if Texas doesn't stop doing what they're doing, then we are going to retaliate and we're going to draw our lines again. Oh my God, how much more gerrymandering can you do in California? The populace is not being represented. I'm going to show you the stats on that in just a second. The state of California, literally, they've gerrymandered. Oh, so much. They've drawn these voting districts so squiggly, they look like a toddler's Etch-a-Sketch after 3 lattes. Okay, so get that vision in your mind. A toddler after 3 lattes. On the Etch-a-Sketch. That's what California looks like. And if you weren't on the right team, right? What is the right team? I don't mean the right wing. I mean the team, the left Democratic team. Your vote was about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. It's pathetic. And I think it's absolutely remarkable that I'm hearing Gavin Newsom, the governor of my home state, saying, we're going to tit for tat. Right? Like, you haven't destroyed that state enough as it is. Listen, don't get me started on Gavin Newsom, now running for president of the United States. Oh, please, God. Meanwhile, sorry, I let my little perspective get in there a little bit. I want to talk about the facts. Because while this was going on, this gerrymandering and this one-party version of California, guess what happened? Like, over the past 30 years, when I was there in my adulthood watching this go on, taxes went up. Like way up. So much so that businesses have left. I mean, and people are fleeing. And where are they fleeing? They're fleeing to Texas, this beautiful state that I live in, because they don't want to be in that craziness anymore. So much so that we've gained House seats in the state of Texas and California has lost them. What the hell does that even tell you? I mean, I don't even have to go into all of this, these things I'm going to share with you, that the taxes went up, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is that people are leaving there in droves. And so not only have the taxes gone up, traffic turned into an Olympic sport. Oh my God. It's just, I can't even stand the thought of the traffic in California. And it's getting a little bit more here, the traffic in these bigger cities, because why? Everybody's coming here. What else happened in California with this one-party rule? Homelessness exploded. Exploded, I say. And this time I left almost 10 years ago, and it was so out of control at that point. I mean, people in just your regular suburban communities, living in front of businesses' doors and on your streets in ways that are just, I don't want to get into a conversation about feeling sorry for homelessness people. The fact of the matter is that it's so important to understand that our basic safety in California became, well, I don't know, optional. It wasn't important. It wasn't important to this one party that were driving people out of the state because of these policies. I remember driving home from work and seeing tent cities that weren't there the week before. I mean, that's how fast it has happened. And it is completely out of control right now. There are so many cities in the state of California where this has become such a problem. And then we just throw money after it. And the money goes to these nonprofits that I don't even know what they're doing, honestly. It's just, it's out of control. It wasn't just sad and unfortunate. It's dangerous and it's unsanitary. And it's growing faster than anyone in government seemed willing to deal with. And just because you throw money at a problem does not solve it, because where you're throwing the money is problematic. So after a while, I realized California wasn't just ignoring the minority voice, mine. It had completely unplugged the microphone. There was no room for these kind of voices. And honestly, who wants to live in an environment like that? As I said, the Wall Street Journal has called it out. When you are in a minority that way in a one-party state, you should leave. You should leave. I think that's true. And so people are fleeing from California and New York, going to Florida and Texas and these beautiful states that really want to support listening to your voice. So I packed up, I headed east, and I landed in Wichita Falls, Texas, which this channel is all about Wichita Falls, Texas. And that's why I want to share with you that this is from a perspective of a Southern California girl who lived in Southern California and said, and then I came to Texas. But this is where, particularly in Wichita Falls and in Texas, democracy still has a pulse. Right? It's not dead on arrival. But I want to share with you what one party rule really, really does to a state, but then more importantly, what it's doing to our overall country. Here's the thing about one party rule. It doesn't matter which party it is. So this is the problem, is that we've lost sight of it. And now there's this big uproar around Texas. But let's look at a little history and a little facts, because when one side has unchecked power for decades, the system stops listening to anyone else, right? And that's exactly what's happening. But the fact is that this is how we've created our democracy. California taught me that this is about no one hearing these other voices. And now, watching Democrats in Texas walk out, actually abandoning their duty. They gave an oath. They raised their hand and said, I'm here to support the Constitution of Texas and of the United States. They've walked out of their duty over redistricting. And now they're holding the whole state hostage. Literally, this is extortion at its highest level. And I'm getting deja vu from that, because living in California, the priorities of the people were not the top priority. It was the priorities of the special interests that were the most important in that state. So the Democrats in Texas right now that are duly elected are saying democracy is being subverted. I'm over here thinking, honey, I lived in a place where that wasn't just an occasional headline. It was a way of life. Now, I understand how hard it is to be the unheard voice, but it's not as if we are not represented in this community in Texas in the way that other people can have a voice. But you do not extort. You do not hold people hostage. That is unacceptable as a statesperson. I don't know where we lost this whole idea that a statesperson, a statesman, stateswoman actually has integrity. And this whole notion of fleeing the jurisdiction is just insanity. But let's look at the numbers. This is what I really want you to understand, because I can give you an opinion, but I want to actually talk about the numbers, because I pulled state by state data. I'm comparing how many people voted for Trump in 2024, because that's just that's a measuring stick. right? I'm not here to support Trump or not support Trump. What I'm here to do is say that so many people voted Republican 2024 versus how many U.S. House seats Republicans actually hold. Massachusetts. Holy guacamole. So about 36% of voters voted Republican in this last election. And what does Massachusetts have? Zero Republicans House seats in the Congress. Well, that's not representative government. There should be at least a third of the seats in the House representing Massachusetts. That's because of, what? Gerrymandering. It's like so simple. New Mexico. 46% of the population of New Mexico voted Republican in the last election. How many seats do they have? Oh, I don't know. Goose egg, 0. So at least almost 50% of New Mexico is not represented in our federal government. This is not what our forefathers expected or anticipated at all. I don't even know, that gerrymandering conversation probably didn't come up till in the recent past. But the fact of the matter is here's another one. Maine. 45.5% of Maine voted Republican in the last election. What? How many GOP seats? Goose egg again. So almost 50% of Maine's population is not being represented in our federal government. That, my friends, is where democracy has become broken. Not in the state of Texas, where it's trying to make up for some of this nonsense that's going on. But these aren't the only 3 states. You can go and look, and like I said, please, if you want to get this Excel spreadsheet, I'm more than happy to give it to you, or you can just do your own research. But Connecticut's done it, Delaware's done it, Rhode Island's done it, Hawaii, same story. So where is our representative democracy? It has been absolutely subverted before all of this craziness that's happened with Texas. That is not robust democracy. That is not democracy at all. It's like inviting 10 people to dinner at your house, making 4 of them sit outside, and then patting yourself on the back for being inclusive. This is nonsense. This is where our whole system is broken. It has nothing to do with Texas. And perhaps we can get some federal legislation. Now, this is the problem, is because the states are in charge of doing this. And I know that we have all this states' rights stuff and everything, but sometimes it needs to be given to you as spoon-fed and say, this is how you're going to draw your lines. I mean, if you saw, I love how J.D. Pritzker in Illinois, which is where a lot of them fled to, was on Colbert this week. He's talking about, Colbert's holding the map up of Illinois. I mean, it's got a little snaky scorpion, all these twists and turns. It looks literally like a child drew it, but it's in service of gerrymandering and putting the political persuasion ahead of the will of the people. That is the problem. And that is not what our forefathers ever intended. It's representative government that has gone absolutely off of the cliff. And then there's this other conversation that's going on, that redistricting in mid-decade, that's never happened. Whatever. Okay, so I did the research, of course, right? And so for all of you pearl-clutching headline people, this mid-decade redistricting is unprecedented. That's the mantra that's being out there. Well, as we say in Texas, bless your heart, but that's just not true. That's just not true. We've seen it all over the country, literally all over the country. So let's stop lying about what's going on and get to a solution. Texas's redistricting is not the solution. It's a symptom of the bigger problem. Literally, I think all the states need to be redistricted and just carve out squares and triangles for where the populace is, instead of this snaking and, it's crazy making all. If you saw these maps, some of you have never even heard of gerrymandering. It's like, what the hell is that? So everybody's getting an education on it. Here are the states, just a sampling of them, that have done it mid-decade. Florida in 2015. They had theirs redrawn because the Democrats at that point, this is before Florida went red, they said, oh, we can't do that. So they filed a lawsuit in the court, which is what could be done here with the Dems in Texas. If they don't like it, just get to work. Just go ahead and vote no. And if you don't like it, take it to court, because that seems to be the operating procedure of most Democrats when they don't like something. But they ordered it, and the court ordered a redraw in 2015. Pennsylvania, 2018. The court said the map was unconstitutional. Poof, a new map. Gee, golly gosh. How about that? And North Carolina, okay, so listen. Basically, North Carolina is the Beyonce of redistricting with multiple remixes. They just go on and on and on and on. It is hilarious. But if you do the research, you can see literally this is not a problem with Texas. This is a national problem that needs to be, we need to strip it down and start over. Literally, there needs to be some serious regulations about how that is done. Because up until now, it's been left up to the congressional, legislatures of the states, which, come on, they're all partisan. So then we have that have done the mid-decade redistricting. Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Wisconsin, New York, all of them, mid-decade changes. So let's please let that conversation, that lie, go. Now, sometimes, as I shared, the courts force it. Sometimes the legislatures do exactly what Texas is doing. But the idea that Texas is breaking some sacred unwritten rule, please, let's look at the real facts. This is the thing. I love facts because they tell the truth. And this is not what's happening in Texas. It's been done, challenged, and fought over in the court for, decades. Mid-decade redistricting is like a pop-up restaurant. Sometimes you get a great meal. Sometimes you end up with food poisoning. And sometimes you just get served papers when the court intervenes. The thing is that if we had a standardized way, and I know, oh my God, this is going to take away states' rights and everybody's going to have a heart attack. But I honestly think that at this point, with all of the gerrymandering that's gone on in all of these states, it's about time that some equivalency happened. Because one-party states and lack of representation, like in the Massachusetts states and the New Mexico, that's insane. That is insane. That is not representative government. So then I want to talk about the border state. I live in Texas as a border state. California is a border state. And the census. Because the census is what determines the legislative seats in the House. This is the part that nobody wants to touch. What it's like living in a border state when immigration policy is a flippin' mess. So over the past 4 years, illegal immigration has been palpable across Texas. You can feel it. And I just want to share that since I've lived here and I know people who live at the border, they've got farms, they've got ranches, and these stories that they have told with the towns that are down there, these are real people, real life stories that I have spoken to. Their cars are stolen. The illegals come through their ranches and their farms. They get into their houses. They rob them. They destroy things. It's really quite remarkable that here, imagine you have this beautiful ranch or this farm and it's just completely destroyed. And you just, this is your home where you've lived forever. You're not going to move, but you're fearing for your life. And then they begin to feel it. We've all felt it so much in our schools and our hospitals and our housing markets. And yes, even in our elections, that's where the bigger problem is. Even though non-citizens can't vote. Because here's the kicker. The census counts them for representation purposes. So I really think we should just throw the 2020 census out. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was the local chairperson for our census in 2020. Oh my God, I've never seen such a mess. It was a circus. It literally was a circus. And COVID did not help. Because it was a circus because of COVID. It was inefficient, data collection was sloppy, and we were counting people who couldn't even legally vote toward the number of seats in Congress. It was a really, really, well, circus. We didn't count efficiently, but there was if you think about it though, we counted so much so that California lost seats and Texas gained seats because of the influx of people. But I truly believe that it was way more because California had such an influx of illegals that their numbers were jacked up more. We should have gotten another seat or two in Texas because of the people that are fleeing here. This is really problematic when we're counting people towards number of seats in Congress that don't vote. It means if you're a state that attracts these large numbers of illegals, which California is, you end up with more congressional seats and therefore more what? Electoral votes without them ever casting a ballot, or in California's case, they may be casting a ballot. We're not quite sure. But it's like giving bonus points in a game to people who didn't even play. I mean, come on. This is unbelievable. And that sets up a magnet for more illegal migration. This is where we've lost our way. We have set it up so that we have taught people how to behave, which is come here and then we're going to count you and then we're going to be represented in our government. And the forefathers never, ever intended that. They did not intend to have a representative government of people that were not citizens of our beautiful United States of America. Democracy depends on trust. And we have lost all trust in our government. Trust me when I say that. And it isn't about this new administration. This trust in democracy has been eroded over the past 40 years in my lifetime as I've watched it just one piece by another just being thrown out the window. And we have to trust that voters share the same core values of the constitutional order that we do, that the forefathers set forward. Things like free speech. And this is the other thing is I just think it's so amazing that we have distorted the idea of free speech to the point. So look, I'm 70 years old. I am very proud of that because I have seen so much in my lifetime, but I grew up being taught about the Constitution, about how laws are made, which literally all of that has just been so subverted in the past 40 years. But the thing is I remember so clearly learning about free speech. Free speech was you could say whatever you wanted as long as you're not interfering on the rights of another human being. That was it. And so the example was always, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. Nowadays, free speech, if you hear some people speak about it, free speech is okay if you're burning cars in a street. You're shooting the police. You are holding hostages, a janitor on a university campus in a closet. That is not free speech, folks. That is subversion of free speech. And it's so important that we begin to get back to the idea of what the founders of this country said was free speech. You can say whatever you want as long as you're not impeding on the rights of another person. That's the end all be all, period. Then our Constitution provides for due process. Due process, and the laws are on the books that say the due process that is available to a citizen is different than somebody who is not a citizen of our country. Whether legally or illegally, they're not a citizen. And the rule of law has been so subverted over these past few years, it's unrecognizable. Because when you have millions of people coming into a country without knowing whether they share our values, it's not about ethnicity or nationality. It's about the shared agreement of what it means to be an American. I swear, I know that people say the Constitution is being subverted or whatever. I think some of the people that say that have never even read the Constitution. The Constitution is a beautiful document, and it was intended by our forefathers to stand the test of time, which it's lost its way in so many circles. And even President Trump, whether you like him or not, he tried in 2020 to exclude illegal immigrants from the census count for apportionment. This is the key here. I don't care if we count them because they are numbers in the country, but they don't count for representation. And the courts blocked it. But as a policy, it matters. It makes sense to a lot of people, including myself. Not because we don't count them as human beings. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is because our representation in a constitutional republic is supposed to reflect the voice of the citizens. That's who it is supposed to reflect. And if you want to be part of the team, if you will, the American voice, then get your citizenship. It's really that easy. So here's my take after all of that. One party rule kills meaningful representation. So there's no meaningful representation in California. There's none in Massachusetts. There's none in Illinois. There's none in New Mexico and several of these other states. So what does that say about our country? We need meaningful change in the way that we are drawing these lines so that everyone has a voice, not just the party in power saying, we are going to make sure that we stay in power. That is not what's happening. Now, I'm not here to defend what Texas is doing. I'm here to share with you the real facts of why this has happened, why that Texas felt that they need to push forward this way, because California proves it more than any other state. And Gavin Newsom threatening, oh my gosh, this is like this whole threatening, extortion, holding people hostage. When did we come to that? California proves it through their own mid-decade redistricting is nothing new. And you can stop clutching your pearls over Texas right now because it's mostly political theater. We have entered this era where everything is political theater. It's just an opportunity to get on Instagram or TikTok and get likes and views and retweets. Oh my gosh. When did we lose the statesman-like behavior that is the essence of who it is that should be representing us in legislatures throughout the country, in states, and our federal government? It has gone out the window. I have never seen anything like this in my life. And it is beyond the pale that we've allowed this to happen. And then we celebrate it. And counting people who can't vote for purposes of representation is a policy problem that has had and will continue to have real consequences. And this border crisis only made it worse. So, Texas isn't perfect. It's not. But after living in California, it feels like a place where your voice still matters. And honestly, I'd like to keep it that way. So, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or you're that person that says, I'd rather not say, show up, speak up. Don't let someone else draw the map for you, literally or figuratively. This is the malaise that we have in our political system that I think people stood up and wanted to have a voice during this last election because like that I forgot the name of the movie was says, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. I think that's what the message was. And so somehow it's about really understanding that everyone has a voice. What happened to my vote counts? Your vote doesn't count in a lot of areas. It counts on the federal election because it's one big pot and the electoral college sort of still works. But the popular vote is then skewed if you let people vote that aren't citizens as well. So as one girl in a small Texas community, I can tell you the bigger picture always finds its way to your backyard. It has found its way to my backyard, into Wichita Falls, and I can share with you that this is a beautiful community to live in. So I'm inviting all of my friends, all of the people in California and New York to really take a look at Wichita Falls. This could be your next home because it's got everything that those places don't have. And I'm going to share a video about why I live in Wichita Falls. So stay tuned for that and check it out. This is an amazing place, Texas. And as I said, I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. Queen of Magic out.